You are listening to the Enormocast.
Hello?
Hey, Joe, it's Chris calling. What's going on?
Oh, what's up, Chris?
What are you doing?
Driving. Right now,
Where are you?
I'm in Idaho, driving across rural Idaho, heading to Smith Rock.
I'm surprised you even have cell up there, dude. Have you climbed up a Smith before?
No, I haven't. So I'm gonna say we're getting like a little bit of climbing time in, but it's not really like a climbing trip. So I don't know. I kind of have mixed feelings. You know, it's like my first time going to Smith Rock, and it has to be a photo shoot. So I'm gonna hopefully get a little climbing time when we're not shooting, and I don't know, see the place for the first time, man.
Yeah, you got to keep climbing. You're like a well-oiled machine now.
Yeah, I know. It's like either climbing or training or I'm traveling. That's kind of like the deal now.
Oh, boo-hoo. But anyway, that's the reason I'm calling you. Is I wanted to talk to you about this boot camp thing because
All right.
I've been hearing about it because I know you guys. I know Dan,
and
I know Sam. And so I've been hearing about it, and now BD's been releasing the videos, and
right.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about the program. So what did they do? What did they do to you guys?
What did they do to us?
Yeah, what was the program?
So I mean, you have to understand, like we kind of formed it by ourselves. Like I think Sam suggested it one day to me, and you know, I was a little reluctant, but Sam is someone who has a fairly large background in training from skiing, and you know, he's got fairly athletic background, so he's definitely trained before and trained a lot more for climbing, and suggested we put together something for BD and kind of do it as a group. Dan got involved, and BD, like JT, Jonathan Tisenga, like jumped on. He was like, yeah, man, like let's do this. This sounds kind of cool. We could also, you know, kind of inspire people to train and get psyched in the gym and utilize time in a different way rather than just, you know, going and climbing.
Now, how far did they go? Were you guys on any sort of dietary plan, or was just sort of physical workouts? I saw in Dan's video that you guys were, I mean, there was like physical therapy for him because he was coming in with some injuries, so it seemed pretty all-encompassing, you know? Yeah,
we had a sports psychologist. That was amazing. Dr. Chris. Then we had Esther Smith, who did a lot of body work and educated us on, you know, maintenance and ways to kind of prolong longevity and health. And then we had Neely Quinn, who was our nutritionist. Definitely some of us took to certain aspects more than the others. Me, I didn't connect so much with the nutrition part, but I connected a lot to the sports psychologist part. And it was cool. It was cool to see like the total dynamic that we all had together. And I don't know, we kind of created this atmosphere, and we created this sort of trio. And maybe it was a little forced, I don't know, but it was definitely like a way that we could all hang out in like this unique way.
Like I said in the beginning, I know you guys all personally. I don't know you as well as I know Sam and Dan. Dan lived here in Carbondale, so I know him really well. And
yeah,
I definitely thought it was kind of funny. The thought of like the Three's Company aspect of you guys all living together, and
yeah,
you know, I realize like the movies that are going to come out, right? That they're advertising, they're going to be like you know, put together in a story form. But I was just kind of wondering, like, if you guys had hated each other, like, would they even have showed that in the video? You know, like a Big Brother style, like.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely like tumultuous relationships, man. Like you can't, you know, have three people for 3 months, you know, like living together in close corners, like training together, eating together, doing everything, riding in the cars together. All of our little bits of time away from each other, it was like, breath of fresh air. Like, you know, we had these spurts away from each other, but dude, we definitely had it out. I mean, there was like times where I was like, I hate you, man. I cannot stand you, man. I can't believe But at one point, someone wanted to walk out on the whole thing. So, you know, there was some drama, yeah, man. But that's what makes it, like, so much more memorable to, like, you know. And, of course, it's put into a story. But everything you see in the story is like, you know, as honest as it gets. I'm proud of him, man. Like, I really am. And I'm proud of what we did.
So over that 3 months, how many fist bumps do you think you did?
Damn, man. At least.
I mean, were you keeping track at all?
No, man. I mean, like, it was constant. You know, I'm like the real, like, spazzy, excited dude. And, you know, I'm fist bumping everybody left and right, both hands, you know, every which way. You know, Sam, you know, wishing like a tornado would blow down the gym and with him in it. And then you got Dan, who's just kind of like trying to keep everybody together and like, you know, just kind of maintaining the stability. But dude, we were all supportive of each other in like all accounts, man. Like even in like the lamest moments, it was pretty cool, dude. It was like everybody would turn up when it was time. And I don't want to like, you know, sound like a dork and be like, yeah, man, it was all just like positive, but it was, dude. Like even like the shitty moments, we would connect more.
A couple other questions. So did it work? Like other than making you want to train more, like what happened with your climbing?
I left after the training. I booked a ticket, booked a trip to Spain, right? And I love going to Spain, and I was eager to go to 2 new areas that I'd never been before. The Basque Country, which is in the north of Spain, and then Andalusia, which is in, you know, the south. Just to sum it up, I had probably the most successful 2-month trip I've ever had in my life. And, you know, it wasn't like a mode of projecting either. It was just like a mode of like going to the cliff and picking like the cool route that I was excited about within my doability range, you know, like, like AC plus, something that I could do. But on most accounts, AC plus takes some real effort for me, man. Like I need to like have a good amount of time set aside to do something like that. But after this training, man, I was doing like one every other day and having like just the most fun, you know. It was never like this prolonged drudgery of projecting on a trip and feeling stressed and like missing out on climbing all of these other routes that I think look great. It was just like constantly bending and constantly clipping chains. Going on a trip, it's like you just want to knock things down, you know, and that's what this was for me. And it was at like a higher level than normal, you know. Like looking back at it now, I'm like kind of ashamed I didn't try anything harder because I know I could have done it, you know. And maybe on paper that looks good, and maybe to, you know, tell the sponsors folk or, you know, like the media or whatever, it looks cool, you know, like I did this, I did that, you know, look at me, I'm a big shot or whatever. But dude, I was just having a good time, man. Because of the training, I was able to send harder. I believe my enjoyment level was heightened because of that.
But don't you think in the end, like, what Black Diamond really ought to do is do this program for like 40-something dads, like get like 3, like 40-something dads or moms? Because, I mean, you know, you guys, Sam and Dan and you all climb so well. Like, you're at a point in your climbing where, like, gaining a letter grade is, you know, this huge gain because, you know, it's so hard to make gains at the level you guys are at. But imagine, you know, guys like me, for example, you know, I've been climbing like 512 for like 15 years, occasionally a 513. Just think about the gains I could make, you know? I know.
Hey, man, this is all like the ball's in your court, dude. It's just like an amount of time and devotion, and like you need to set it up. But you can do that, man. That's just a choice. You can do it.
I was more getting around to BD footing the bill, and and also because I'm also gonna need some daycare coming up here.
Oh,
any
that's
minute.
Right. Oh, yes. Maybe, you know, I'll make a suggestion, or like, you know, maybe you could write a little like letter, a little email or something.
Okay,
to follow up. But honestly, man, like the plan is to kind of, you know, encourage people to train it. And it doesn't really matter who you are. It doesn't matter what your lifestyle is. You can create a little bit of time, and sometimes it's less. It's pretty likely with a lot of people, you know, with a given schedule of work and family and, you know, your limitations, we all have them. Everybody's got them. You know, it's not always fun. It sucks, man. It can be really uncomfortable.
One last question for you. When are you coming on the show, like for real, doing a full interview? God. We've been talking about this for like 2 years.
We'll do it soon, man. I don't know. I'm a little bit uncomfortable with these things. I just feel like I sound like a goofball, and I don't really. I can't say I like the way I sound, man. Like, I mean, do you like the way you sound?
Oh, I love it. Are you kidding me? This is the only thing that keeps me going. Everybody knows that.
That's why you do this.
Well, look, you this is your little taster. You did okay.
I hope so.
You know, just come on back through sometime. You know, there's probably at least 1 or 2 routes you didn't do in rifle yet.
Hey, man, I'll be there in May. I'll see you in May, Chris.
It's done. You can't hide from me in rifle, dude. You cannot hide from me. Why are you
I know.
scared of me, Joe?
I don't know, man. I'm scared you're going to make me look like a total bonehead.
Look, I have nothing to do with that.
I know, man.
You, my friend.
Maybe that's the problem, man. Like, I just, too scared.
Right on. Well, thanks a lot for doing this, Joe, and hopefully I livened up your amazing drive through Idaho a tiny bit.
Yeah, you did. Thanks, man.
Awesome. Well, I will see you in May.
Okay, good deal, Chris. Thanks a lot, man. I'll talk to you again.
All right, folks, that was nice of Joe Kinder to do that. If you want to check out those videos, and there's a lot to learn. They're pretty fun. They're short, little hits, a series of them about their training program over at blackdiamondequipment.com on the experience page. These guys are good guys, fun to watch, and, inspiring. Maybe I'll start training. We'll see. A lot of man meat over there on these videos, but the ladies are in a program similar right now, so we'll see how that turns out in the next couple months.
We gotta get Listen, where you playing in town? You playing here?
We're doing the Enormo Dome, whatever it is. It's terrific.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
big
big
house.
place.
Sold
That
it out.
side of town. That's a big
nice.
place. You sold
What's
it
that,
out.
20,000
I'll see.
seats? We really should.
Look, you better get up there before you panic. Those pens are loose. You're very good. I have really enjoyed playing with you. We'll make it. I don't think so. But we shall continue with style. Bad weather. Now or later, anytime.
Today's show is brought to you by Black Diamond Equipment, with support from Maxim Ropes.
And the fine folks at La Sportiva. And don't forget our charter sponsor, Bonfire Coffee. Go to bonfirecoffee.com and enter Enormo at checkout for a discount on great coffee and to support the Enormocast.
And now back to the show.
Hello and welcome to the Enormocast. This is your host, Chris Kalous. It is April 5th. Losing track of time, people. April 5th, 2016, about 9:15 a.m. today. Doing an a.m. intro. Rare moments of daylight podcasting. This is episode 102 of the Enormocast. Still getting used to the 3-digit episodes here. And on today's show, I have mountain biker and old dear friend of mine, Rebecca Rusch. Why do we have a mountain biker on? Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. So the big news at the podcast is, of course, the Enormo baby arrived. Luckily for my girl, he was not as enormous as all that. 7 pounds, 8 ounces. Pretty big baby for up here in the mountains. And, he's good, doing well. We are rolling with the new thing, having a baby. I will admit his grip strength is not as up to par as I'd hoped. So far as hangboard sessions, kind of non-existent. He's not really able to grasp those, even the largest jugs. But, I think he'll probably have excellent footwork. Although at this point, I don't even know if he can see his feet or even knows they really exist. But that's what's gotten his dad through. Good footwork, not having power, so we'll just see how it goes. Certainly destined to climb 517. Yeah, he'll be warming up on your greatest achievements, Chris Sharma. Just know that. He's coming for you. All right. In other news, I want to remind you that 5 Point Film Festival is coming up here in Carbondale if you happen to be in town or passing through or nearby. Great event. I love it. I've been with it for years. It definitely brings this little town to life and shows off all the great things about Carbondale, and there's a lot of them. I will be MC on Saturday night, the 23rd of April. I will be holding up the bottom end at the after party on Friday night, and of course the most important thing is that there's a live podcast at Bonfire Coffee Friday morning. If you're around, it's free. Drink some coffee, watch us put a show together. Don't know my guests. I think it's 10 a.m., might be 9. Get there at 9, and if we're not started, just drink some more coffee. Anyway, I think it's 10. I think it's 9. I don't know. It's 9 or 10. It's in the morning. So Bonfire Coffee, downtown Carbondale, easy to find. So that's all happening. Get your tickets if you're going to go to the event. The after party and the podcast are free if you're around. And rifle should be in decent shape. It seeps in the spring, so come up and climb. 5pointfilm.org is where to get more information and find out exactly when the podcast is. I should probably look at that too. And also get tickets. The whole thing gets close to selling out, and the Friday and Saturday night programs definitely sell out. So get your tickets ahead of time. Cool. Okay, I'm going to preview this interview. It's a little bit of a sideways interview for the Enormocast because Rebecca Rusch is not really a climber at the moment. She was a climber. She hopes to become a climber. She's actually most famous for being a solo endurance mountain biker, perhaps the most famous one of these of all time. She's probably the highest profile athlete I've ever had on because the spandex-clad crowd is much bigger, I think, than the climbing crowd. So even though Tommy Caldwell is super famous and Mr. Honnold's super famous, I think maybe Rebecca trumps them. Not that it really matters. She's an old friend of mine. That's how she ended up on the show. We've talked about doing it a bunch. We actually did one, and I trashed it because it was really just two drunk people reminiscing about their past. That'll come out after my death in the lost tapes. So you can look forward to that, hopefully later than sooner. But this interview is a little bit about the transition from climbing, what it gave her, and also hopefully her transition back into climbing, because she was quite accomplished as a climber as well. If you're not familiar with Rebecca, she has dominated this niche in mountain biking for several years. She's an inspiration to not only women, but I think at this point, even all of us a little bit over 40. She's in her mid-40s and still crushing, which is impressive. I think these endurance sports may lend themselves to the mindset of people who are who've been around a little while, seen a few things, suffered through a few things. Suffering isn't such a big deal when life has been crushing you for a few decades, I think. Just look at the big mountaineers. A lot of those guys are older as well. So anyway, hopefully you enjoy this kind of angle that I'm doing here at the Enormocast. Just kind of presented itself. I don't necessarily plan to do a lot of this, but if we can find some climbing angle, we can do it. If Kelly Slater's ever once touched an artificial climbing wall, I'll have him on the show. Kelly, if you're available, come on the show. Over the years, friends and family have said to me, Chris, there's more to life than climbing. Well, needless to say, I don't talk to those people anymore. I miss you, Mom. But it appears Sportiva believes this too. Besides making the best climbing shoes out there, they make stuff for the long approach to nowhere, known as trail running and hiking. Do you like to run or walk aimlessly? Then check out the Superlight Helios 2 Mountain Runner or the Trango TRK GTX. Apparently one acronym was not enough for these mighty boots. And frankly, though they're sold as trail boots, they look technical enough that Bonatti himself would have given his last cannoli for a pair back in the day. So check out all the other stuff Sportiva has besides fantastic climbing shoes at Sportiva.com or your nearest high-end outdoor retailer. It turns out they're even into skiing, if you can believe that. Tap a talk?
Yep. How's it going? Sound good? 7 seconds we've been doing this now.
Okay.
It's a long time.
You're talking really low.
Am I? Okay. How about that? Is that better?
That's more like
okay.
What you talk like. Here.
Oh, cheers. Okay. We're starting. We're actually doing this.
Yeah, we're doing it.
Okay.
What have you been doing for the last year?
Let's see. I started out the year with probably the biggest ride of my life. I went and took a trip to Southeast Asia to ride in Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. And it really, I race for, I'm a super competitive person. And I like have to race people at the supermarket sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we argued on the way. We haven't seen each other in months and we instantly got arguing on the way over here.
Well, that's just you.
Yeah, right.
You
anyway.
like to stir the pot. But yeah, I did essentially a big expedition bike ride, 2,000 kilometers, spent a month over there and really interacted with, people who live there and kind of just did a big exploration on the bike. And it was a really interesting evolution for me as an athlete and a cyclist, in that there was a start and a finish, essentially a start and finish point and places in between that I wanted to visit. But really it was kind of a big adventure. It reminded me a lot of, some of the international climbing trips and stuff I've done, and where there isn't really a huge agenda and each day is do whatever mileage. And it was actually a really cool trip, a really personal trip for me. but also really lit the spark again for my adventurous spirit that I've always had, from camping in the backyard as a kid to rock climbing and doing big walls with you. Like, I like to explore and not necessarily know what is around the next corner. And I think this trip really reminded me of that I wanted to get back to that kind of adventure. So the rest of the year has been a lot of that kind of changing my cycling a little bit and changing what I've been doing. I mean, I teach women's clinics. I have my own cycling event in Idaho. I'm helping open snow biking park, fat biking park, which is really fun. But for my own personal goals that are not necessarily career goals, I really just want to explore on the bike. And I think a lot about, the time we spent climbing walls. To me, these sort of bike expeditions are essentially big wall climbing but the route is flat, horizontal instead of vertical. And so, yeah, I'm kind of transitioning, which is really cool. I think I'm in a little bit of an evolution as an athlete. I've been an athlete 20 years. I was thinking back, this was my 20th outdoor retailer show or something. I don't know. I've been coming for 20 years.
Right.
And thinking back to all the time, what's happened over that, from being a rock climber, being an adventure racer, a mountain biker, and it's kind of, in a way, coming full circle in that the cycling I want to do involves maps and foreign countries and kind of exploring and into the unknown a little bit.
So now, are you for sure you're able to, sustain it without the competitive part of it?
No,
you are this.
No, for sure not.
Oh, okay.
Well, so then the other big ride,
because I sort of think about my own experience with hiking and backpacking. That's what I started as in terms of outdoor adventure. I was a backpacker. I dreamed of the PCT and all that stuff growing up where you grew up as well, in the suburbs of Chicago. That was the dream. And then that just went out the window when I became a rock climber, because I needed, then I had these goals. And now it's I call hiking the long approach to nowhere. You've
always said that to me. Yeah.
So.
I know. Well, here's the difference with hiking versus cycling and climbing, rock climbing, adventure climbing, that kind of stuff, is that there is kind of the woohoo factor. There is the excitement factor with cycling that I don't know that you get when you're walking 2 miles an hour, 3 miles an hour, with a huge load on your back.
Sure. It's a different kind of
it's totally
meditative
different
thing, yeah.
And I mean, the kind of cycling that I'm really interested right now is kind of like, extreme alpine climbing, where you're going light and fast and you're carrying everything with you. They essentially call it bike packing, which, maybe it's the bike approach to nowhere. But for me, it's the exploration. And you're planning your route. You're carrying everything on your back, on your bike. So it is this sort of extreme alpinism kind of. I mean, I lay my gear out. I count out how many gels I'm going to take. I mean, the same kind of planning that I would take climbing a wall, really. But you can't haul a bag behind you. You're putting it on your bike or on your back.
Right. Well, I'm just going to kind of come clean. We're talking about your trip to Vietnam, and we can't give a ton of details because it's going to be a movie. We want to keep some excitement about that. So if I cross over there into that zone, but we're pedaling with a partner.
Yeah, I went there with my husband. Now it's weird to say husband, but yeah, my husband, Greg. My hubby. Yeah, I went there with my husband and was partnered up with a Vietnamese cyclist teammate who I didn't know, a total stranger. And we just kind of all went on this huge journey together. And there is a story that will be told when it's ready to be told. And to be honest, it's been almost a year since the trip, and I'm still processing it. I'm still writing stuff down. I'm still meeting people and thinking about people, and, memories are surfacing. So it's actually has been the journey's not over yet. And I get to go back to that part of the world next month as well. So it'll be a continuing story. And
right.
Yeah, when it's ready to be told, it'll be told. But for me, what's been really cool with that is it's just kind of shown me the places I can go with two wheels versus walking is really slow, like you said. And on a bike, you can just travel and see the world and go places where there's no roads, and you're off the beaten path. You're not necessarily a tourist when you're traveling that way.
So let me kind of ask you this. You're famous, or one of the many things you're famous for, but I mean most famous for these solo mountain bike races, whether they're the huge ones. You've won Leadville 4 times. That's 100 miler, 106 miles. Is that what I kept reading? Or 103? 103
miles. Yep.
103 miles. You do these 24-hour lap races where you just go and go and go. And they're solo races in the sense that you are on your own in terms of racing, but it's a group effort. And in your book, what's your book called?
Rush to Glory.
Rush to Glory.
Get it? Like my last name? Okay.
Nice. Like the Gold Rush.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's one of your bike things up in Idaho, right? Mm-hmm. Nice. It's nice to have a name like that.
It is good. It helps people to pronounce it more correctly too when I use it in a sentence.
Yeah, because it's got that extra C in there. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so it's always a team effort, and you're like you never miss a chance to talk about that in these races in your book, your mechanics, and all the support that you get. So, could you ever see yourself like, doing like a peace out? I'll see you in a few days, all by myself kind of trip coming up in the future, like one of these expeditions, but I'm out of here, me and my GoPro, or maybe me and just me. Yeah.
And that's really where I'm going. The Asia trip kind of extended into this last year. I did basically 2 of the biggest rides of my life, the Asia trip. And then the second one that I did towards the end of the year was, a solo event in Idaho, called Smoke and Fire, and I just kind of went and did it. It's a totally self-support. There's no entry fee. There's a bunch of people start together at the same time. There's a GPS route that you load in, and it was 444 miles. Took me 44 hours and 44 minutes. And yeah, I just went alone, and you don't see anybody after the first half hour. And, I think there were 30, 40 people who did it, but I didn't really see any of them. And to me, that was kind of the ultimate experience because, you're alone in your thoughts, you're alone in your head, you're making decisions, where to get water, where to eat, where to sleep, if you're going to sleep, when a restaurant opens that you might be able to get to. And what was cool about that was all in my backyard. It was all in Idaho, and I've lived there probably 13 years now, and I got to see a whole bunch of stuff that I've never seen right outside my back door. But those races are... they're totally self-support. You're not allowed to take help. You're not allowed to you're on your own. And if your bike breaks, if you get lost or any of those things, you just kind of deal with it yourself. And I kind of loved that. So I see a lot more of that in my future. I have some things lined up for next year that'll be, again, along more of those exploratory lines. And, Leadville's awesome. And the super fast bike racing was something very interesting for me to how much can I eke out of the power meter and the training and really specific training with a coach, and can I have 5 more watts, pushed into the pedals, and all that kind of really focused training is super fun. And, I went and did Leadville a bunch of times and won it a bunch of times, and, won 24-hour worlds a bunch of times. But I know now I could go back to Leadville. I know every inch of that course. I know exactly the time splits I should be at Powerline, at Pipeline, at, exactly what I'm going to eat. And so I have that dialed. And so then now there's a part of me that's like, okay, I don't want to know what's around the next corner. And it goes back to me being a kid and exploring in the backyard or taking a different route to school because I didn't want to do the same thing. Uh-huh. And I think that's all the changes, everything I've done, all the different sports. I mean, that's the reason I've been an athlete for my whole life and have such a long career, I think, is because I've changed. I've evolved, and I haven't done the same thing over and over. I mean, if I was a swimmer and I just stared at the black line on the bottom of a pool for 25 years, I don't think I could do that. And you did the Kokopelli was an unsupported thing too, right? Yeah. That was sweet. Because that's a rule. Among did they bust your chops for having the camera crew there? No, they being the internet and there was one guy who put a little blog out and was like, she's really spoiling, the solitude of bike packing and this and that, because the film crew met me, at a few places along the trail. But they weren't allowed to talk to you or anything. They didn't talk to me. They didn't give me directions. They didn't give me food. And the ride was 13 and a half hours. I probably saw them and the video they made was 3.5 minutes. So, And we had to shoot the second day to recreate some stuff.
Sure.
So I really only saw them, whizzing by at about maybe 60 seconds for the whole entire ride. So yeah, there were naysayers. It's like you said, if somebody's soloing on a wall and somebody takes your picture, are you really alone or are you not alone? But I'll tell you, on Kokopelli, like when I broke my finger.
Yeah, you broke your finger. I wanted to ask you
lights
about
went
that.
out. Nobody was around for that. I was just yelling into the darkness myself, like, no. And, nobody heard.
Right.
Nobody came to help me. Nobody said, oh, it's going to be okay. Let me take a picture of your finger.
Right.
So.
Did you take a picture of it?
No, I wish I had.
Because it sounded
was
gross.
Pretty rad. At the end, I took. There was a picture at the end when I was in the emergency room because I was like, "Wow, look, you can see the tendons," and whoa, that's really trippy. And then I passed out.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so we got to talk a little bit about climbing at one point. But honestly, the climbing, when we met, you were a climber. That's how we met.
I was your boss, remember?
Yes,
well,
boss.
not quite, actually. You were one of the first people who I was out on a climbing trip in Estes Park. I don't know if you remember this.
Yeah, of course I remember.
Okay. When we met with my girlfriend Donna, and we were like liberated, going, we're going on a climbing trip by ourselves, and it was pretty cool. But we didn't know a whole lot, and Donna didn't hardly know anything. So I was kind of the lead and pretty insecure about everything. And then we met you guys through Jack Gorby, our friend from Chicago.
Well, it was more. I want to tell that story.
Okay.
Because we were in the guide shack, and Jack Gorby, he was old guide, like kind of basically the guide school, Colorado Mountain School in Estes Park, where a bunch of younger guys that considered themselves like hotshot climbers, even though in retrospect we all weren't, because frankly guides usually aren't. But we all thought we were super cool and like partied all the time and like that classic sort of lifestyle up in a mountain town. And then there was an older echelon of guides, including Mike Caldwell, Tommy's dad, and this guy Jack Gorby, and he was like, he must have already been 60.
I think so. He's full gray
50s,
hair
yeah. And wearing sort of the Kletteren cap, whatever those like little German like climbing caps, and more of that sort of breed. Climb 5'8" on a good day if he was like really feeling fit. And so he comes. We're all in the guide shack, this classic like storied little building. It
was a hellhole in there.
John Backer had supposedly lived there. All these like Michael Covington had supposedly lived there. Anyway, we're in there debauching ourselves as usual, probably, and in bursts Jack, and he's just like, "Hey, you guys!" He wouldn't have said "you guys," but he's like, "I got 2 women in the car. Like, you guys got to come out and meet them." And of course, those guys were just like, "What? There's girls here?
There's girls at the shack?"
So we came out and met you, or you guys came in. I can't remember, but I just remember that we got 2 girls in the car.
It was. I walked in, kind of like, "Can we sit outside on the picnic bench instead?" It was pretty gross. A bunch of single beds and dirty guys. I remember you were showing off the Fry Daddy machine.
Yeah, we had our Fry Daddy.
You can fry anything in here. And I was like, wow. But we were enamored because we were like, these are real Colorado rock climbers. We come from Chicago. And we're like, oh, this is the real deal. Like, these are hardcore dudes. And but we did want to stay outside because it stank.
Yeah, it was nasty in there.
It was nasty.
And actually, the funny thing is compared to a lot of the people who lived there over at least my tenure there, I actually kept a pretty tight ship in there. I was like known to actually clean up now and again and like try to clear the mouse poop off the table and things like that.
I could see that.
And I occasionally would clean the Fry Daddy and get some new oil.
Yeah. Luckily, we didn't have a meal there.
The key thing about the Fry Daddy, though, is that you can't really have like get E. coli or anything from, because everything gets killed. Like, it kills everything. Yeah. So that was kind of maybe the essential part of the Fry Daddy. But we had some good years up there. And I always thought about how what you guys felt like meeting these guys. I realized later was a lot of what we or the school was kind of selling. Because we got a lot of Midwest people, because if you live in Colorado, you a lot of times, not always, but you can find someone to learn how to climb from. But so we got these people showing up, and I think a lot of them were just like, they wanted to they wanted their guide to be like that. Like this guy that was just like, man of the mountains. And like, honestly, we used to joke, because there was a picnic table out front, that it would be funny one time, like, in the morning when the clients would show up, they'd sign them in and walk them out, and then we'd all be like pretending to be passed out on the picnic table with all the bottles and beer cans. That was real. I don't think we ever passed out there, but we used to just power through alcohol out there. Just be like, okay, you see the one guy on the left there? Yeah. Just go. That's going to be your guide today. Just quietly tap him on the shoulder and try not to disturb him, just like, oh yeah.
Okay,
I'm ready. Let's go. Let me grab my pack, So anyhow, so there you were. You guys showed up.
Well, what you were selling, I mean, it was true. We soaked it in, and, thankfully I didn't have to pay for a guide, but, Jack suggested, oh yeah, maybe Chris can take you up something, a little bit bigger. 'Cause, we were just climbing little stuff, and we'd come from Chicago. We climbed at Devil's Lake, like little tiny things. And I think you I don't know if you were just like, oh, all right, I'll take this girl up something, but you agreed to, or offered to take me up Notch Top. Mm-hmm. And I'd never done like...
You know how much free guiding we did for women?
Oh, okay. Well, I was like, man, he's going to take me up there? Okay. And I remember asking kind of Jack, well, is this guy safe? Like, does he know how to tie a knot? Does am I going to be okay alone with this person? And it turned out to be awesome. I mean, we got up super early, hiked way in. And for me, it may have not been for you, but it was really a life-changing kind of adventure experience for someone from Chicago. I went to school in Illinois, and yeah, I did some outdoor sports there, but not like in the mountains of Colorado and getting up before dark or before the sunrise. And it was I left that trip, totally in awe of you and the guides that were there. Well, and it helped that you played guitar and you sang. And I remember you sat on that same picnic bench and sang Sweet Jane to me. And Don and I got in the car, and I was just like, whoa. So that's what a real man is about, huh? And then I got to know you.
Right. It was all for show. It was all part of the Disney experience of guiding.
But it did really spark me okay, I'm going to go back to Chicago. I really want more of that. I want more of that. Mm-hmm. And obviously I didn't continue to live in Chicago and moved out to California and just felt the world was bigger. I needed to get out of the Midwest, and climbing was really what took me there.
Well, I remember myself, I didn't climb before I got to Colorado, but just in my evolution, there was a moment where also we're going to climb something big, and not even big, what the Notch Top's 5 or 6 pitches, something like that.
That was massive, right? But for me,
but not just to go do that, but to realize that there's a place you get to where it's pretty casual, just like, oh yeah, sure. And I just a couple years in remember meeting that type of climber and making that mental shift of because to go climb in the park for me when I was at Colorado State, when I was learning to climb, that was to go do Hallett's or whatever, 5.7, the one that fell off, was a huge deal that we had just freaked out about. And then you finally realize that it's not too long to where, that's, oh yeah, let's go do it. And I'm sure, I don't remember specifically, and it helped. If you were some dude, I definitely wouldn't have gone and climbed Notch Top with you for nothing. But I'm sure I was just yeah, I got a day off. Let's go do it.
Yeah, you were casual, and I was freaking out. I couldn't sleep the night before. I was like, what do I wear? What do I bring? What do I do? I don't want to embarrass myself or do something wrong in front of this climbing guide. Mm-hmm. And
yeah, no, I would have been pissed.
I know. Yeah, I was totally trying to play up the best game, I knew what I was doing.
Yeah, I didn't know you were such a Gumby at that point, actually.
That's good. I was hiding it.
You did it. Yeah. Oh, yeah, but you were an athlete, so you had that bearing anyway.
Competitive spirit. I wasn't going to let go.
So, well, we ended up in California together after that, and together for a little while there. And
secret relationship.
Is it a secret?
Remember, it was.
Oh yeah, it was then.
Because you worked for me. I was your boss. So we pretended like nobody knew and everybody knew.
You did. You insisted on that, and everybody knew. It was just ridiculous. Anyway, that makes me mad now, just even remembering that.
Do you remember that 5'10" climbing ad?
Where
I was
you're doing the
pull-up, and it said I was single in the ad, and you got really pissed about it.
It's funny because it was all part, rad and single or whatever, can't have this.
I think it said single and enjoys it.
Yeah.
And you're like, Well, that's not really true.
But that was the thing is you enjoyed that anyway. Because then you could still be like the girl around the gym. Uh-huh. Yeah, see, now it's all coming back to me. We're going to have to take a break. Anyhow.
My beer's empty.
Okay.
That doesn't piss me off.
All right. I'm calmed down now. Let's move on.
I know I upset you. I'm sorry.
That's
it was
all right.
a touchy subject.
I wanted actually to, I mean, when we met, you were a climber. You weren't a mountain biker. You weren't any of these things. You became an adventure racer. You were like really heavy into that for a decade when that was popular. You were an outrigger canoe racer. Mm-hmm. That actually started while I was still in California. Then there was mountain biking. What else am I missed? You paddled down some rivers.
I swam the Grand Canyon on a boogie board, essentially. That was one of my biggest.
No, it was a flotation device.
Yeah,
or a watercraft.
A river board,
right.
Yes. Let's see, outrigger canoe race. We said that. I was on the U.S. Women's Whitewater Rafting team for a little stint. Cross-country skier. Runner was where it all started in high school. So, yeah, I've done a ton of different sports.
Right. So if you were to put a little graph out, we'd have this like upward motion of climbing after college. And then those other things would start and we'd see this little dribble off of the climbing after a while.
Really sad,
right.
Isn't it?
Which is kind of why we're here. Because you were a climber. And actually,
no, but I would say I am a climber, and that's really important to me. Mm-hmm. Like, it's people always ask me, what's your first love, or what's the sport? You've done so many sports, and like without even hesitation, it's always climbing.
Okay,
it's always the one that I won't sell my gear. It's all still there. It's like it's
Does
probably
it say
really
J
old
Rad on it or anything?
Yeah, some of it might. I remember I used to make fun of your old crappy gear in Colorado, and now I'm that person. But no, I still like. I believe I'll always come back to that, and it's kind of there waiting for me. And maybe that's kind of how we started out with that. The things that climbing offers, this sort of exploration and adventure and community, that is something that drew me into all those other sports. And all those other sports, in a way, were tangents and opportunities to extend a career and do some really cool stuff. But I always feel like climbing will always be there, and it'll always be something I want to go back to.
When was the last time, because I mean, you and I hung out in Indian Creek. Shit, when was that? Mm-hmm. When we put up all those roots on, it was on the wall. I think that was the last time.
It was. We made a plaque there for a friend of mine.
So it must have been about a year after that.
Yeah, it was the year after, where I was actually, and that was really interesting. When Nigel died, adventure racing, that was a big impact for me, and kind of the end of that sport for me, in that kind of sitting there going, this doesn't feel right anymore. And it was interesting that I went on that climb. I was really hurting and, didn't know what I was going to do with my life, and kind of that was a healing trip for me. And climbing was a way to kind of, think about why I'm on this earth and why I do sports. And I mean, it was a really heavy time, and you kind of, spent that time with me. I don't think I climbed much. I just belayed you on a whole bunch of projects you were putting up, but just kind of being around rock and sitting there and hanging out, that was super important. And that's a lot of the part of it that I'll never lose. I'll always want to go sleep in the dirt and look up at the rocks. And even just recently, I did a bike photo shoot in Moab, and I'm sitting there staring up at the cliffs while the cyclists are looking down at the trail. And I mean, my eyes are always drawn up to be like, I wonder if I could climb that. And you're looking at a crack. And so that's a part of me that I know isn't dead, which is exciting. It just, because of my job, is my sport right now.
Right.
I can't always squeeze in the time to go kayaking or go rock climbing, or, because climbing takes a lot of commitment and time.
Right.
I don't have a sport crag right near where I live. So it's, right now it doesn't fit, but that doesn't mean I don't want to do it.
Well, you're like, you're a full-on business.
I am. I have a business.
You have two assistants.
I have a business manager.
Right,
I call her. I like to say I don't call her an assistant. Colleen. Yeah. And we have a mini Colleen here too. But no, I built a business which is crazy around following sports that I've loved and being able to piece it together. And now, I have a full-time employee. I'm going to hire another one. It's bizarre, but it also means I have to commit to the things where I can earn a living. But it doesn't mean I won't want to do the recreational.
Well, I'm wondering. I was kind of getting to this. Are you still racing?
Yes, I am still racing. Last year, I won my 7th world championship at 40. What am I? 46 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I still won a world champs.
What are you? 46 or 47?
I can't remember. I think I'm 47. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're talking about this solo.
This was a gravel road race.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It was 130 something miles. Right. So yeah, no, I'm not dead yet. I'm still competitive.
Well, the reason I'm asking about that is that because it seems like the real problem is all the training.
The training takes a lot of time.
Yeah, and it's probably really hard to be like, well, I'm going to go on a climbing trip for a few weeks. Like,
I'd be blowing off my job.
Yeah, you can't take. You're not like a biker who can just like, okay, well, I'm not on my bike, I can go climbing. It's like you're kind of, if you're training and you're trying to be competitive, you're not able to just fuck off and go climbing. Right.
The cycling's not a hobby.
Right.
I mean, I'm definitely trying to combine passion with being able to make a living. And it's working, but it also means there's days when it's raining outside and I have to go train.
Right.
Before I came to OR yesterday, I had to sit on the indoor trainer on my bike and do intervals in front of the television and, knock those out at 6 a.m. so that I could drive to Salt Lake and be here for work. So It is like any job, it's a commitment, but it also means I get to go to Vietnam. I get to go to all these places. I'm going to Kilimanjaro next month to hike up and bike down.
Okay.
Which that would be pretty fun.
Yeah.
And the day-to-day training is hard and mundane and like a super massive commitment to especially competing against people who are 25 years old and, to maintain that level of fitness is super hard. But that's why I like to pick all these trips, because then the trips and the races and all that, they become the training in themselves.
Right.
And my coach, Dean, he's like, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. And so that's maybe why I keep signing up for stuff and I keep filling the calendar, because one, I want to see the world and travel and do cool things, but I also want to not become a fat slob and, want to stay ready for opportunities like this Kilimanjaro thing. I just got invited 2 weeks ago and I can say yes to it because I have the time in my schedule and I can get fit enough in time to go do it. And now I just have to figure out what shoes to wear and how to be at 19,000 feet.
Right.
But that'll be, it's walking, but it's climbing in a way. I feel in a little bit of a way.
People say they climbed Kilimanjaro.
I know. I'll climb. I can lay on the ground
in terms
and put my
that mountain.
fingers into the dirt.
Right. But I guess I'm gonna go back.
At?
I'm not getting at anything.
Okay.
I want to go back to your climbing career. Mm-hmm. Because you worked in a gym. You and I worked in Costa Mesa Recreation.
Excuse me, I managed and co-owned a rock climbing gym. And then you and I started, along with our good friend Bruce, essentially we were the first essential crew up there. You were essential crew.
And was that a little dig on Bruce?
Well, you cleaned the toilets. Bruce was like the greeter, he was like the personality,
the front.
Yeah, just like, oh yeah, this route's awesome. You should try that. And then Chris and we're back there cleaning the toilets.
Yeah.
And
but in that climbing, that was the first gym in LA. I'm sure there's probably tens of gyms, if not, all over the place up there. That was the first one. It's still there.
Costa Mesa in LA, they're still there. They're still operating.
Yeah.
They're it's actually really cool to go back there because Recreation in LA is just down the street from Red Bull North America headquarters. Uh-huh. So I actually go there a lot and I pop my head in Recreation and it makes me really proud that it's actually a viable business and it's going well. And now, of course, there's climbing gyms in every school, but this was really some of the first kind of cutting edge. We were just kind of making it up. Yeah,
and it became a bit of a focal point for the LA climbing scene, which for a massive city was really kind of small. You sort of did feel like you knew most of the climbers who climbed out at J Tree regularly or climbed at Tahquitz in the summer regularly or made their trips to Yosemite. And I think partially based on that climbing gym was how I got to know those people, because I was only there for, I don't know, a year and a half at the most.
It was definitely a gathering place. I mean, John Long came and hung out there, and like, you know, all the people that you sort of read about in the magazines who started, you know, climbing, you know, at the areas in LA, they all came and hung out and checked it out, and then, yeah, on the weekends, you'd see all those same people out there, which was really cool.
So with your climbing career, you were actually kind of interesting because you were a really good climber.
No, I wasn't. I never was.
See, that's what I'm about to get to. I know. But you didn't suck. And I
thought I sucked.
I know. Well, that's my point. And you know, I think I've discussed this with you before, but, you know, it had everything in my mind to do with your reference group, is that you were amongst these, you know, the best climbers around. And at that point, you know, at that gym and in your life, this whole, and because I was around, kind of this whole big wall thing was like, it was raging, right? The big wall kind of resurgence of the 90s. And, you know, that was kind of the essential thing. And there was like Kevin Tho, he was there, you know, like all those people that were totally...
This is an awesome studio.
I know, they're just like... Do you see that bottle sticking on that dude's backpack? It's totally awesome. Yeah, we're not in the nicest part of town. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh, yeah. So you have this reference group, these people, and I think that's kind of like partially your competitive nature wanted to be sort of the best, I think, or you wanted to be thought of that way. But I think that was like a really hard thing for you to be, because you thought you sucked. Everybody else thought you were rad.
See, that's crazy. Yeah, no, I didn't think that. I mean, yeah, the reference group is, you know, the people that are coming in there are elite climbers. I mean, Robin Erbisfeld came and did a clinic, you know, at Rock Creation. And, you know, the people that came there, John Backer came and hung out, and Kevin Thaw and you, and the people who climbed there, Dale Bard is like names you read about in the magazines. And then I'm like, yeah, really trying hard on some 5'10" in the gym, going, you know. So yeah, I mean, all my life I've been super hard on myself.
Right.
And, you know, maybe more pessimistic. I don't know if it's realistic or pessimistic.
Yeah, that's right. Isn't that the thing?
Yeah, but yeah, the reference group was a whole bunch of really, really rad people who were in the magazines and, you know, knew all the 5'10", you know, climbers and all those people. And yeah, and then here I am, this girl who came from Chicago and got a job, you know, and pretended to be a climbing guide. And I always felt like I was a little bit of a farce and somebody was going to soon figure me out that, like, look, she didn't really know how to do any of this stuff. And that's partially why I did, you know, when I went and soloed a few walls and went and took Donna climbing and like took girlfriends climbing, was to actually, you know, to a little bit, not to get out from under the shadow of you or people who are better than me, but to actually prove to myself that, like, look, you don't need some guy, you know, telling you or belaying you or going up the route first. And that was kind of a big deal for me to do those solos so that I could actually try to, maybe convince myself that I wasn't such a bad climber. I don't know. It's a hard sport, and there's always someone better. There's always a harder route. There's always, you know, a numbers chasing game, and especially being, you know, managing a gym and being a climbing guide, and, you know, there was a level of expectation. And now I feel like returning to it, I would be totally happy, like, climbing a 5'7", and but then I don't know if I would.
I was about to ask you that actually earlier. Was like,
I hope
could you
so.
Come back and, you know? But the thing is that you could come back. Honestly, you could come back in no time be at least where you were, because things have changed.
They've gotten easier. The grades are softer.
No,
what are you saying?
The vision is different about what's easy and what's hard. And
my vision or the vision of climbing?
It would be your vision, because it's the vision of climbing.
Yeah.
Because honestly, in that it sounds like hokey, but it really is the difference as to why. I mean, in a lot of ways, those routes are the same. The 5'10s that were hard back then, they're the same route, but you just, you're in a community now where you approach these things like with this whole different mental attitude. It's just a matter of vision.
I think it's called aging, Chris.
No,
I think
not.
it's as you get older, you get smarter, and I really do. I believe that how we look at things in our 40s versus how you looked at them in your 20s is through a different lens.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I think the whole sport is looking at it that way. I mean, the whole sport is looking at it as like, 5'10" is not something you need to worry about once you become like an accomplished climber. And even as a pretty good climber, like, going out to Joshua Tree is like a big deal to climb a 5'11" out there. I remember trying to climb like 5'11s out there.
And you're saying now that wouldn't be a big deal?
I don't think it is.
See, I would go out there. This is where the competitive part. I'd go out. Go to Joshua Tree, and I'd barely be able to get up a 5'8", and I'd be really bummed at myself.
Back then or now?
Now.
No, you wouldn't. I mean,
Probably.
you'd be able to get up a 5'8".
Dude, I
Look
don't
how
know.
fit you are.
I don't know. Yeah, but it's not It's not specific fitness. It's totally
but Joshua
different.
Tree, you can stand on your feet.
No, maybe we should. Maybe we need to have a reunion trip out there.
That would be fine. If you could
I actually
find some time.
I tried to go to City of Rocks. When I got married last year, that was going to be our honeymoon. We were going to City of Rocks. We were going rock climbing. I pulled out my haul bags and dumped everything in the basement floor, all my gear, and that's when I was like, man, this is the kind of gear Chris had that I made fun of. Like, this is old climbers gear, but I was also kind of proud. Like, yeah, this stuff is, they still work, little cans. You're like,
right,
and lube them up a little bit. And it was actually really cool to go through all that. And the sad part of the story is that we drove all down there. I had got my old guidebook out from City Rocks and like looked up routes, and then it rained the whole weekend, so we didn't get to go climbing. But I got so excited about it that it reminded me that, yeah, it's there. It's waiting for me.
And then you just put all the stuff back?
Well, yeah, we just put it away and drove home because it was, the forecast, it was just pissing down and no way.
So what I want to ask you though, because we're all over the place, is the transition. So you did these walls, you were a wall climber, but then like what happened? Where did it go? Was it simply a matter of time commitment from one thing to the other? Was there something missing from climbing that you needed, that you got out of these other things? Maybe the competitive, like the actual competition where it can be judged at the end of it. Because we're all super competitive, and I mean, maybe not all of us. I guess it's stupid to say that sort of thing, but most climbers are either subtly or overtly competitive, whether it's with their friends or with, what's going on in the climbing world. I mean, that's what drives. But it's a real kind of like a real ambiguous type of competition because, you just have this idea of where you fit into kind of the hierarchy of what's good and what's not good. And, and you have these secret sort of feelings about, well, I can climb this trad and that asshole can't even climb this kind of trad. He's only a sport climber. All that sort of stuff is all in the mix, but never do we ever get to cross a finish line and be like, this time was better than that time or whatever that you get out of competition.
Yes and no. I mean, anytime there's a number, there's a grade, there's a judge, we're always going to look at that and compare ourselves, whether you're competing in a climbing competition or whether you're looking at, how fast somebody did an alpine ascent. And you're like, so-and-so did it in 14 hours and I did it in 18 hours. I mean, it's the human nature to compare. One, to pat yourself on the back, go, oh, that was all right. I did pretty good. So there may not be somebody with a starting gun and like a flag at the end, a banner to go under, but I wouldn't say there isn't a start and a finish line. But to answer your question, and I believe that being competitive with ourselves or putting a measure on things in a healthy way, I actually do think that makes us strive to be better. If you didn't have a goal of, I want to climb 5 whatever, or I want to do this one route that I saw, on YouTube that's beautiful. If you don't have anything like that to aspire to, then, I mean, it's kind of what is there, But to answer your question a while ago about what did climbing not provide for me, why did I leave? Like, what was missing from it? Nothing, absolutely nothing, except making a living at doing it. And really what happened is while I was managing climbing gym in LA, some of these adventure racing people came in, and I didn't know what it was, but basically a bunch of people in Lycra and like totally didn't fit into, you know, the baggy shorts and t-shirts and stuff, came in like full Lycra and said, we want to learn to rappel. And, you know, you might have been there at the time.
I was there,
like,
for sure.
You want to, first I judged them. I looked them up and down and like, you don't fit in here, essentially. But I was a manager of gym. I'm like, we'll take your money. You want to learn to rappel? Okay. You don't want to learn to climb? All right, you know, okay, rappelling lessons are this much or whatever.
How much are rappelling lessons?
Yeah.
Yeah, rappelling lessons. We'll do those at this amount.
You're like, Chris, okay, you're on this rappelling class. But it was this whole group of elite, like the best in the world. I didn't know it at the time. Adventure racers, which is Eco Challenge and all that stuff, which was really cool sport, multi-sport sort of thing. But a lot of them, they had no rope skills, and they were always like a tie rolling traverse or some dramatic rappel that looked good on TV. And so these people need to learn some rope skills. And
no, I remember being there with Bruce.
We were laughing,
and we were just them. Like, and no, this was actually a little later when it was like your friends coming in.
Yeah, and they still didn't know how to dress.
Well, and you were like, you know, this guy's like the best there is. You know,
John Howard.
Yeah, it was John Howard.
Crusty old.
Yeah, and
Kiwi.
I was just like, Bruce and I were like,
that guy?
That guy's the best there is. Like, that's the best they got. I mean, you know, he was the best, and he was the best for 100 different reasons that were not necessarily apparent in a climbing gym. But yeah, we were being snarky shitheads, but we were like, yeah, we were just like, all right, well, good luck with your thing that you guys are doing. Yeah. You know, I mean, climbers were the worst, but
anyway, that group of people eventually, yeah, they essentially invited me, a group of them, to help start teaching some of their camps because I had the rope skills. So I got some rigging jobs, essentially setting up rappels and stuff, and then eventually got invited to be on a team because the teams were co-ed. They needed a girl, and I could paddle and run and climb. So I could do 3 out of like the 7 things that were required for adventure racing. So got put on a team and we won our first race. And what happened from there was not that I wanted to leave climbing. It just doors started opening. And then from winning that race, like, oh, well, you won a trip to Australia to go to the Eco Challenge. And so it really just kind of, it was more my desire to travel and experience different things that I said yes to, you know, a few early on adventure races, but then it became my job for 10 years. I was actually able to make a living out of it and left recreation. And that's when I moved into my car and kind of made the commitment that, oh, if I'm going to get to do all these travel things, it probably won't last more than a year or so. So I'm going to move my car so that I can afford, I don't have rent. I can afford to like just bop around and then go on these international trips when they come up. And in that period, which was actually ideal between the adventure races, I was rock climbing and living in Moab and living out of my car and kind of living the ultimate dirtbag lifestyle. And these races would pop up here and there, and then I'd go climb, and then I'd go get a part-time job in Tahoe or something. And it was really great for a while. But then the adventure racing actually started to become a career, and I became the team captain and got money for it and, you know, managed the whole team, and kind of one thing led to another, and slowly climbing had to take a back seat. And then, you know, years later, that led to the transition into mountain biking, which is all totally unexpected. I mean, honestly, when I left my job at Recreation to move into my car, I thought it'd be a year or two, and then I'd, you know, sort of go back to having a regular job. But it really did, because of climbing, it spawned a whole, you know, 20 years later, adventurous career and lifestyle. And so it's not that I left climbing, it's what climbing gave me. Mm-hmm. And it's what I'll always go back to, like I already said.
And you had a sweet van you were living in, right?
I didn't have a sweet van, but I remember like coveting, you know, you drive up to the crag and you're like, oh God, that's the sweetest van ever. No, I had a 1975 Ford Bronco that wasn't great to sleep in. It wasn't comfortable to drive. You drove it. In LA on the freeways, it was terrifying. It was a death machine.
Yeah, it was terrifying. The lap belt, no chest belt or whatever the top half of a fucking seatbelt is.
But
And everything's steel, and I'm sure that steering column didn't collapse.
No,
it would just go right through you.
Yeah, it was not safe. I mean, the fact that I survived driving
you
in
never
that
crashed
truck.
it.
No.
It's amazing.
It is amazing. I never rolled it.
It was such a white knuckle on the highway, like on the LA traffic, because you had that little tiny steering wheel. Did you ever replace that steering wheel?
No.
So you had this little tiny go-kart kind of steering wheel, super oversized tires. And so like if you like barely moved your hand, the thing just like jumped out of the lane. So you'd be like knuckling and then you
couldn't change the
radio
radio
station.
station.
You'd like be looking at the radio station like out of the corner of your eye, and then you'd like let your hand go to like turn the volume. You'd be like, no, you had to get it back on the steering wheel because you're like dig all over the lane.
And like the rumble strip or like the little things in the center line, those would totally pull the car.
Yeah, totally like suck it one way or the other. Yeah.
Do you remember when you put on the brakes, it would pull really hard to the right?
Yeah, totally. And then you couldn't turn you'd replace the engine with some other engine. And so when you were going like 60 miles an hour and it's all metal inside, like there's no padding, that's got the
loud.
Flat metal. Yeah, you couldn't turn your stereo up loud enough to hear it over like the just raging like sound of everything. So you'd be like on these road trips just like in your own world because you couldn't like have a conversation.
It was like white noise, but really loud white noise.
Yeah. For 10 years you were in that car.
I drove that thing for long. And you know, that was my master plan, is like I had a car that was paid for, even though it was unsafe on the road. I didn't have I didn't live anywhere, so I had no bill, so I could afford to essentially.
I can't believe you never crashed that car.
Well, no, I didn't.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Well done.
Yeah, thanks.
Did you ever come close?
No, probably, you know, in LA or high speed, like slow, it was really good, like, you know, 4-wheel drive truck.
Yeah, for sure.
But fast, no, it was scary. It was scary. But I got good at it. But yeah.
You have an Audi wagon, don't you?
No, I don't have an Audi. No, I have a Ford Edge. Oh. I had an Audi, and it was like the worst car ever. And that was the next car after the Bronco. And
just to turn the knife a little bit.
Yeah. So at least I have a Ford still. But yeah, that was a total symbol of that, you know, 15 years of my life of really kind of living on the road and going where I wanted and kind of building all this.
It's probably better that it's gone.
It's okay. It's gone. But I was about ready to buy it back. Yeah. You know, when I put the book out, all these people were like, you got to get the Bronco back. And there was actually like a team. Well,
I was going to say that. It actually, in a lot of ways, it was like this ended up being this kind of little marketing tool.
Everybody knew it.
Yeah, everybody knew it. And it's like, it fit this like rad chick, you know, who's tough. And you
but
essentially.
I wasn't that rad.
Everyone
just thought I was.
It's the start of chapter 9 in the book. Every single chapter starts that way. I was a loser, but I had to try again.
Perseverance. It's not the queen of pain, it's queen of perseverance.
But you more or less, like, with some help, built the thing, so it was kind of your baby.
It was, yeah. I rebuilt it. I welded the bumper. You know, I got my knuckles bloody under that thing, and it was a really cool project for me. I wasn't mechanically inclined before that. I'd never changed the oil in my car or anything, and essentially bought that and took it on as a massive project, kind of because of a guy, but I'm really glad I did it. And I learned a lot about tools and power tools and hand tools. It's a skill that's come in really handy.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. Totally. I probably still have scars on my knuckle from the truck, but she's gone. She's gone now forever.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Life has to go on.
It does. It's all right.
So I wanted to ask you a couple more things about training, actually. And we went off on that personal tangent. You know, the reading in your book and just knowing you all this time. And one of the things that, like, as you got away from climbing, also that what is essentially, especially back then, is a really lazy lifestyle. I mean, climbing bum kind of lifestyle, especially, you know, we were, a lot of us, wall climbers. I mean, that's like the laziest of all climbing sports, I think.
Is it? You're moving for like 18 hours of every day. Like,
no, but I mean, in terms of like having to train for it, it's non-existent.
The experience,
you can't be,
is the training.
Yeah, you can't be like a complete like chubby slob, but but you don't have to be super fit. I mean, go listen to the Aid Rant.
Yeah.
You don't have to be super fit to be like a wall climber
in an athletic sense. And so that was one of the things I think, like, you know, your life probably changed. There wasn't like beers and cigarettes around campfires, you know, for days on end and things like that we were doing as wall climbers. But you've had coaches like, and had, you know, day after day, week after week, month after month, like scientific training, and seeing amazing results from that, you know, in terms of talking about leading up to each Leadville, how it got like more intense, and you felt the gains every single time, like, oh, this is coming together. And then there was the one where you didn't train at all and it still came together, right? Wasn't one of them like that?
There's been some...
I mean, you didn't train at all, but...
There's been some like that,
yeah.
And that's where I will say, you know, just the sort of durability of wall climbing, or like living a lifestyle like that. You know, yeah, the beer and the cigarettes aren't that healthy, but just being outside all the time, carrying a pack to the crag, putting a haul bag on, that stuff, like, those are things that make you strong in a way that I don't think any gym could do, or any CrossFit class or whatever. But I will say, yeah, that when I got serious about cycling, I couldn't just sort of rely on natural ability, or I couldn't just kind of wing it. And, especially because I started bike racing at age 38. So it's like, well, I better stack the odds in my favor. So that's where I got coaches, and the science behind it's actually really interesting. It actually really does work to train if you get a power meter and heart rate, and, you know, look at the nutrition of how you're going to fuel yourself for an intense, 7.5 hour effort. And I know we've talked a little bit about that in your wall climbing. You got really into goo for a while, and like that. If you actually don't put garbage into your body, it does actually work, and it produces better results. And so for me, the training was an experiment on myself, to kind of see where I could go with it. And if I am getting a paycheck from cycling, I better try to actually do my best. And that, that's the difference. You sit around the campfire with cigarettes and a beer, nobody cares if you get up that route the next day. But when you go have year-to-year contracts, and you might not have a job in the next 2 months if you don't win a big race, then all of a sudden the stakes are higher, right, and the game is different. And but it is really interesting to see that, at 38, 47, whatever, that you actually can go faster if you are scientific about it, and I actually can train less if it's just more efficient.
Well, I wanted to ask you this as a reflection, and I don't know how much attention you pay to climbing, the sort of particulars.
Just the Enormocast
is
really how I soak it all in, and Outdoor Retailer Show.
Because it seems to me that there's little pockets of somewhat intense training, and but at the same time, like, I don't hear of anybody approaching it with, or many people anyway, approaching it with the sort of modicum of like intensity and science that, I mean, even just like some of these like hobbyist cyclists do. Like when we went to that thing with Bob Roll, was that his name?
Yeah.
In Chicago, it was like for some coaching service thing with all these people in Chicago, and like those guys, these lawyers, like part-timey dudes, were approaching this sport with more intensity than, I mean, I even hear some of our top climbers doing. Like, you hear about these guys going and training and doing certain things, but it just feels like climbing hasn't quite found it on a big scale, this like way of, and maybe because it's seen as, like kind of taking a little bit away from the sport to act like that. But I mean, it just feels like maybe we haven't found it yet. And I don't know, like the Training Beta podcast, those guys, they take care of this stuff way more, and it's kind of weird for me to even be talking about training. But what do you think about that? It just feels like climbing has a long way to go about training.
Yes and no. I mean, you think of people, it's like, I mean, Mark Twight was probably one of the original guys who was like doing these hardcore workouts and publishing it. And I mean, he has a gym here, I think, in Salt Lake City now. And, Steve House has a book out on training for alpinism. And those training books have been around for a super long time. I mean, even when we were at the climbing gym in the 90s, like those books were coming out of like doing fingerboards and doing all this stuff and doing this many pull-ups. And
but by and large, I mean, you know, of the handful of like amazing alpinists that I know, you know, they don't do any of that stuff.
They just go spend time. They go spend time doing the routes.
Right.
And that's kind of where I was getting at with you and with me is like, I sign up for these bike events and all this long stuff because I would rather be doing that and call it training than sitting in my basement with a power meter and a heart rate, you know, monitor on, doing intervals. But the reality of most of our lives is that we can't just always go on 3-week climbing trips every month and then be 1 week at home. And so for those people who have jobs and kids and whatever, they have 45 minutes a day. They're going to pack it in. They're going to do an interval session on the bike, or they're going to go boulder in the gym really hard because that's all people can do. And that's in hopes of, you know, call it training, call it climbing, call it whatever you want. But to be your best when you do get to go on the next trip to Spain, or you do get to go do something cool, you don't want to feel like crap. You want to feel your best.
Right.
And I mean, you're right. The cycling community, one, it maybe it's money that a lot of those people are, like you said, doctors, lawyers, they're pretty well off. They're buying $10,000 bicycles. You know, I mean, literally that's what a really nice bike costs. $10,000 more than your van sitting out there.
$10,000 is $8,000 more than my van sitting out there. Thank you very much.
Okay. So they have the disposable income. What those people don't have is time.
Right.
And I bet they wish they were like the climbing community where they had the time to lounge around the campfire and talk about routes and shoot the shit, but they don't. They have all these commitments. And so they pack their fun, or they're into like an intense 45-minute session at 6 a.m. before they have to go to work in hopes that, you know, on the weekend they can go do a long ride. And I mean, I think it's because, I don't know, it's like maybe the more successful you are in business, you approach your sport that way, with this kind of attitude of like, if I do this, I'll get these results. And I would say I fall somewhere in between. It's been really interesting to be part of the training world. And like with Red Bull, they do a performance camp with us where they've done like brain testing. They've done all this kind of like muscle mapping. We're wired up like guinea pigs. And it's actually really, really interesting. Like they can see what our brain is doing when we're maxed out on the bike, and they're wiring us for sleep and all this kind of really interesting stuff.
What were you doing inside that pod?
The pod. Yeah, the picture of the pod, the bod pod.
Right.
That's what they call that thing. So that was just, I mean, simply a body composition. So seeing how much muscle, fat, hydration, like basically seeing what your body composition is. But you go in this pod and it displaces the air around you, and it's all spaceship looking. And
yeah, it looks like a 1950s like movie.
Crazy.
Like you're in some like the set of like a 1950s sci-fi movie.
It is. And when Red Bull does this stuff, like seriously, the brain training where we're like playing video games without touching any controls. You're just thinking about driving the car.
What?
Totally. It is sci-fi. It's totally sci-fi, and it's really cool. But what I learned from all that, the bottom line is that it's really, and the stuff you can't measure or create, and this is what climbing builds, is just sort of the hardcore, like just summiting the peak or finishing or getting to the end or getting out after dark. Like that's the stuff that nobody's been able, no training coach, no anybody's been able to bottle and like market and sell and build character and like just durability. Mm-hmm. And that's what climbing walls with you taught me, is just like, you just go, you just don't give up. You just like, who's going to come get you up there? Like you just finish it. Mm-hmm. And I could whine about it or cry about it a little bit, and then you'd just be like, well, yeah, okay,
great, let's keep going.
Yeah, let's keep going. And that's what all the science and all the training, all that, you can't bottle and you can't train that. You just go do it.
So if you return to climbing, when you return to climbing, do you have any things that you still have left on your tick list from way back when, or is there a place you'd want to go back to and try to climb something from all these trips? I mean, you did a couple races across Patagonia. You've raced.
Yeah.
Where else have you raced? Borneo, Morocco, Australia, Vietnam. Didn't you go there on a eco challenge or some such thing?
Yeah.
Did you guys do many cold ones?
Nepal,
that was cold.
That was a really cold one.
Yeah.
Sweden, that was pretty amazing. Tasmania, Spain, Italy. I mean, honestly, I've almost been everywhere, which has been really, really cool. And I would say I would like to go back to Yosemite. Obviously, there's something about that place, and whether it's climb a wall or just kind of be there. I don't know. There's something so magical about it, even so historical, and the time that I spent there. I remember watching your little dot moving when you're soloing stuff, and I was sort of watching you climbing walls and taking pictures, and then meeting you, to help carry your stuff down. I mean, it's so
after the rappels.
Thank you. I didn't carry his shit down. Hey, is it truly a solo if somebody meets you and carries your stuff?
Did you carry my stuff down on the winter one?
No. I just met you. I think I brought you cookies or something.
Right.
Yeah. So is it a solo if you had a cookie? If you got cookie support?
When I was down in the valley floor?
I thought I met you at the top of the rappels and gave you cookies.
At the top or bottom?
I think I met you at the top.
Not in the winter one.
No?
No, because that was super gnar.
Okay, at the bottom.
Okay, good.
At the bottom.
I just want my record to stay clean.
You're clean. It was truly a solo. But no, I'd go back to Yosemite. I mean, that place is really magical. But also, one of my favorite places in the world for sure is Argentina and Chile and the Bariloche area. And I've spent a lot of time there bike racing, adventure racing, and never really climbing yet. But I love the people there. I love the vibe. So I could see going back to South America and climbing. And then I live right near City of Rocks in Idaho. I live near one of the coolest places to climb, which is pretty awesome. And Elephant's Perch is something that is also right outside my back door, is alpine rock climbing. And I don't think I'll ever be like a big sport climber or boulder or that kind of thing because of what I want to do, the adventurous sort of pull for me.
Right.
I don't know. What should we do a reunion wall?
Well, I'll climb something.
What would we do? I've asked you actually to come do Finger of Fate with me, which is in Idaho near me, and because you can do the Elephants for Perch.
I thought you were talking about in the Fisher Towers.
No. If there's Finger of Fate,
that'll be a hard sell.
No.
I mean, I've climbed it before. I don't need to go back and climb that one again.
There's 2 routes in Idaho that you can do in a day, and you've got to sort of run between them and link them up, and I threw that out there to you once, but you didn't bite. I guess. Yeah.
Oh, I must have had something else on the ticket. We climbed in the Perch together, though.
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that might have been one of the last times too.
I think so.
Yeah.
You might have to do all the leading though, because I suck. Remember?
Yeah, I know. I remember.
Yeah. Okay.
Totally.
Or wait, you said I didn't suck.
No, you didn't.
Okay, thanks.
But who knows now?
Thanks.
I would imagine you kind of suck now, at least for a while.
Probably. Do people still do those like hand donut like training? I remember driving in my Bronco, like squeezing, you know, the hand.
Yeah, the donut's still around, the Grip Master and all that.
Okay,
business.
maybe I have to get back on that.
That's what I'm talking about. Like, and again, there's going to be all these people, and I'm going to have some of these people on the show who are true. They know about training. Mm-hmm. And people are going to bug me because I said climbers don't know how to train. They're going to be, yes, they do. And you have to come but I think for most climbers, what passes as training is like kind of a joke, like driving around squeezing the donut, for example. Like, yeah, I've been training.
But if you climb enough, if you actually get out there and do it, then that is training.
Right.
Well,
that's always the running joke is you're training for training.
Yeah.
You're training to train. What are you doing today? I'm doing a little training. It's like, well, what does that mean? Anyway, the one that I haven't done, and I don't know when it'll ever happen, is I've never climbed the nose.
Really? Let's go do the nose.
Have you ever climbed it?
No.
Huh.
And actually, Hans Floring called me up. No, he called me up last year.
I'm sure, for people to hear that.
It is.
Never climbed the nose.
I want to do it. And Hans Floring actually called me up. He was doing his 100th. I don't know if he did his 100th climb on El Cap this year. And he actually asked me.
100th ascent of the nose?
Yeah.
Okay.
The nose, or was it El Cap in general?
It has to have been the nose.
We'll have to look that one up. But he actually called and asked if I would consider going with him. And I was like, I was so tempted, but I couldn't squeeze it into the schedule.
Right.
That would have been really sweet.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, you could have done it like, and been down in the meadow, drinking coffee. And
it would have been fast.
Yeah, totally. That'd have been a nice way to get it done. Anyway.
I know. Do you think you can do it as fast as Hans?
No, of course not.
Okay.
Almost no one can.
Well, we could take longer.
I would like to do it in a day.
That guy trains.
Does he?
I tell you, that guy trains.
All right.
Absolutely.
And that's actually probably the problem, is I just don't know it's all happening.
Because you're not doing
exactly.
Right.
If I'm not doing it, nobody is.
Yeah.
Imagine how rad I'd be if I was training.
You would be. That's what I learned with cycling. Wow, I'm a lot better if I actually try.
Awesome. Well, I hope you do come back to the fold. I will go climbing with you.
Really?
For sure. Of course.
It's documented.
Yeah. And actually, our many of our routes that we put up in that little brief period there where I think it was 2 different trips because we put up those routes at the Sparks Wall on Indian Creek. Mm-hmm. Classics. Sparks Wall is a huge hit now. They're
not our routes. I was the belayer, but
you climbed some of them.
I did, but yeah.
And then the wall. I mean, some of those routes we put up at the wall are total classics now too.
Well, is the plaque still there?
Oh yeah, the plaques are still there.
That's
and
really
cool. The one with Nigel's name on it is still there.
Oh, that's cool. That
they're fading, but they're there. They're there.
Okay, so when we go climbing again, are you going to yell at me? Or are you going to do the silent treatment? Or which Chris Kalous am I going to get? Or is it a different guy now?
We're wall climbing?
Yeah.
I don't think I'll yell at you. The silent treatment's still a big tactic.
Okay, that's effective.
Just the exasperated. Yeah, I'm not quite silent.
Yeah. Just enough of a sigh that I know. Yeah. Yeah. It speaks very loudly.
You know what else is actually a tell on me? If I sort of
you breathe in.
If I seem like I'm in a bad mood, but I'm whistling, that's a tell.
It's your fake being
happy.
Yeah.
It's like I gotta stop thinking about how mad I am at this person, and I'm gonna whistle and pretend to be all chipper.
So anyone who climbs with Chris, if he's whistling, he's fucking
and I'll be
pissed.
very
no, it's okay.
No, body language wise, I'll be very deliberately organizing things and whistling.
I haven't heard the whistle. I've seen the deliberate organizing and the silent treatment and the inhale. You do the inhale without the exhale. I'm coming back to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay.
That'll be fun. Yeah. That'll be really fun. I can't wait.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, folks, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed that, coming at climbing at a little bit different angle. Thanks to Rebecca for sitting down. Hope it wasn't too much reminiscing. After a long life in climbing, it's your good partners that you're going to remember, not necessarily each individual climb. Okay, if you want to help out the podcast, I think we're getting some new listeners off the Tommy Caldwell ep. Got out there a little bit wider than my normal ones. You can go over to enormocast.com and click on the Help Out tab. A bunch of different easy things to do to support the cast. Write a review, subscribe, donate if you want. It's all there. And also remember to support our sponsors. This thing exists partially because of them, mostly because of you guys. But let them know that you appreciate their support for the podcast. Okay, folks, it is springtime in the Rockies. And that is a lovely time to get out there and climb. I don't know what's going on in your part of the world, but it's spring here. Everybody's excited. I probably won't be climbing that much in the next couple of months. Let's face it. That's okay. It's a lovely trade-off. But if you guys get out there, review your safety if you haven't been climbing all winter. Even if you have, talk to your partner about what needs to be done before you leave the ground. Let's not have one of those tragic, thought you were going to be lowered, wasn't being lowered. Accidents happening out there. Hate those. So unnecessary. So unnecessary. Wear your helmets when it's appropriate. Ooh, there's a can of worms just opened. You know what I mean. And of course, don't forget to check your knot.
come far, pilgrim?
Feels like far.
Were it worth the trouble?
What trouble?